of the Community Wealth Building Commission being held on the 18th of March 2025. And we have Councillor Allison. Apologies from Councillor Brown. I don't have Councillor Cooper. Councillor Fagan here is chair. I have Councillor Robb. I don't have Councillor Ross. Councillor Walker here. I have Paul Manning, Jackie Taylor. Apologies from Suman Gupta. Apologies from Colin Lauder. I have Josephine Pravin-Kumar. I'm just checking, I don't know if Elspeth Hamilton. I have apologies from Hisashi. Apologies from Jimmy Wilson. I have Thomas Adamson and Jimmy Whelan from Blantyre Soccer Academy is in attendance. I also have a number of officers in attendance, and at that I'll hand over to the Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. We've got quite a bit to get through, so I'll run through this as much as I can to give the maximum time to those who are presenting. So item 1 are declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? I don't see any. Can we come to item 2, which are the minutes of the previous meeting? They are submitted for approval as a correct record. Can I ask, are there any questions on the minutes? I'm not seeing any questions on the minutes. Can we agree those as a correct record? We agreed. We're agreed. Come now to item 3, which is a paper on community benefits within our contracts, and Craig Ferguson is going to speak to this item. Craig.
Yep, thank you, Chair. So the purpose of the report is to outline the Council's approach to community benefits and contracts, how that links into community wish lists, how they are fulfilled with the current position. Also noted an overview of the Senefits online system that is used to monitor and report on community benefits, and also an update on community benefits progress for the first 6 months of financial year 24-25. Section 3 of the report outlines the background. It notes the legislative requirement for the Council to consider community benefits for contract values over £4 million, but also notes that the Council will consider the inclusion of community benefits in all tenders over £50,000 in value, where that's appropriate to supplier value and also duration. And also at 3.2, we note the link there to the Sustainable Procurement Duty that very much supports the ambitions of the Council's Sustainable Development and Community Wealth Building strategies. Moving on to Section 4, this outlines the Council's approach. So in April 2023, we launched a refreshed community benefits menu, and that's provided as Appendix 1 to the report. This menu was developed in collaboration with the Procurement Network, Community Engagement and also the Sustainable Development teams. So the menu is allocated into 6 areas reflecting Scottish Government requirements and also Council priorities, and they're listed in the bullet points just below 4.2. So the key focus of the Sustainable Procurement Duty and also community benefits is to deliver tangible improvements to the economic, social and environmental well-being of the local area, and for community benefits very much forms a key contribution to meeting the objectives of the Community Wealth Building Strategy. We have a community benefits points matrix that's provided in Appendix 2 to the report, and that's used to calculate the minimum number of community benefits points a bidder must commit to during the tender process. And that matrix supports the procurement service during the building of the tender to ensure the community benefits required are commensurate with the value in term of the contract. The community benefits themselves are scored as part of a tender evaluation, and since April 23, we've mandated a score of 30% of the technical envelope to sustainability, weighted between community benefits, fair work and also climate. A typical weighting for community benefits will be between 5 and 10%. And just to note 4.6, when a contract is awarded, the delivery of community benefits committed in the tender will form part of the overall contract. Section 5 is an update in respect of community wish lists. So the Council's wish list is very much embedded within engaging with local communities and also financial support to communities areas of the community benefits menu. And that allows connections between community organisations and also council suppliers and contractors. In a broader sense though, community groups can also make requests to suppliers, local businesses and even local partners via the wish list for support for financial donations, donations of materials or donations of time to benefit their own communities, projects and causes. And the bullet points of 5.2 give an update in relation to the number of wishes that have been submitted, those answered and the total value at just under £96,000. Section 6 outlines our approach to the monitoring of community benefits. So following contract award, the Council's Community Benefits Officer engages with the contractor to set the requirements for community benefits delivery and also develop a phased delivery plan. In April 24, we introduced a new piece of software called Zenefits, and that allows automated and regular reporting on the community benefits position for the Council and reflects what's been agreed through the tender process. So we get detailed reports on the community benefits that includes delivery status by individual contract, and they're reviewed by resource-based contract managers. In terms of kind of broader reporting, we also include it within the Council's annual procurement report, and that's provided annually to the Commission. Moving on to Section 7, this gives an update in respect of benefits provided during the period first 6 months of 24-25. You can see there's 103 for community enterprise resources and also 91 from housing and technical resources. Within the second table, that gives an analysis of delivery status for all community benefits awarded during the last 2 years. But obviously important to note the delivery of a community benefit can be also over the entire term of the contract. 7.3, just to bring this to life to some degree, there's 2 case studies there for community benefits delivered between April and September 24. One delivered by Findell Education. They made 5 donations to community projects across South Lanarkshire, a financial total of £3,200. And the second one noted is from Turner and Townsend, and this was part of the Country Parks Master Plan contract for Calder Glen and Châtellerault. They offered 2 summer work experience placements and also 2 opportunities for people to engage in their work on the project, and also a community consultation event at both country parks over a 2-day period. I refer the Commission back to the recommendations and note the content of the report be noted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can I ask if there are any questions in that report? Could you indicate now? And could I come to Kirsten Robb?
Afternoon, everyone. Thanks very much for that report. A couple of comments and a question. Craig, that's great to see the monitoring items, that the way we can monitor it now through the Zenefits programme, so that's really nice to see. On 7.3 on the master plan process, it is slightly odd that the community consultation was seen as a kind of add-on rather than a valued part of the project spec, but that's okay. The main point I wanted to ask was really picking up a point that Nancy Barr, when she spoke to the Commission before about investing in community capacity. I was looking for ways in the benefits matrix where some of that could happen, and just to run it by you, I thought the financial input, I think it's number 1, might be a useful one. It's about providing support to communities to develop a particular project. I thought that might help with some of kind of Nancy's concerns. Would that be kind of right, that communities could apply through the wish list to get that kind of support? Thanks.
Thank you for your question. I think what we can see from the menu we have here, that there's a very wide spectrum of opportunity there for businesses to contribute locally. I think in terms of the wish list themselves, that also is fairly broad in terms of scope, and essentially community groups can come forward with proposals. They're essentially listed there. As we explained through the report, that can then be tied into a procurement, or it can be for another local organisation to deliver. So I think between the two, there's certainly plenty of opportunity there for these communities to expand their capacity there.
Thank you.
Okay, could I come now to Josephine Pravankumar?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Craig. It was a really helpful report. Welcome, and really like the way the sort of Zenefits thing operates. But a couple of questions, and one is around the community wish list. I suppose the 36% have been, gone through or been successful. I just wondered for the remainder majority, is there, any specific themes coming out of that we can, provide for people at the point of application to make sure that it's actually can go through, and wondered whether also we can, is there any kind of a shifting into that fund to be able to allow more those things in that wish list to be materialized or go through, I suppose, be successful. My final point is, this is in Appendix 2, in terms of the value of contract and the CB points to be delivered within contract period. I'm looking at for 50K to 100K, it says 20 points, but for 10 million to 200 million, 500 points. I didn't kind of calculate, but I'm just wondering, is that enough in terms of the CB points to be delivered for a large project? Should be asking for more of points to be covered within that. So hope that's clear, but thank you. Really helpful, people.
Okay, Craig?
Yeah, thank you for your questions there. I think in terms of the delivery of community benefits, as the report acknowledges, they can happen over the lifetime of an individual contract. The important point here is around the benefit that Cenefits gives us in terms of phasing that. So it gives us a new level of information we probably didn't really have to this extent. And as we refer to in the report, resource contract managers now have that improved visibility. So when they're having their service meetings or contract meetings with contractors, they can very much make sure that information is to hand. And that obviously gives us much more confidence in the overall delivery of community benefits over the lifetime of the contract. For various reasons, obviously, they won't be delivered at the outset. It may take time to recruit, etc., to set up subcontracting arrangements and so on. So understandably, there is a kind of phasing of the delivery of that. In relation to community benefit wish lists, there is, the report explains, there is that kind of tie-in between community benefits. We can have providers or local companies providing community benefit wish lists that may not have tender for a particular council contract. Something like that keeps it quite open and obviously maximises the opportunity there for delivering on the asks from local communities. In relation to your question on Appendix 2, a key point here, and this is thinking about it from a kind of a tenderer perspective, yes, that when we establish a community benefit points menu, fundamentally it's got to be proportionate to the value, duration and type of contract. So it falls then that a lower number of points will come off the back of a lower value contract. As a council, we have a lot of purchasing power, a lot of procurement power. We do use that through community benefits quite well, I think. We also have to be proportionate in that. We can't over-egg this unnecessarily, because ultimately that may well disadvantage and disincentivise companies from bidding in the first place if our CB's ask is considered just too significant and not proportionate in the first place.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any other questions, so can I draw us back to the recommendations unless anyone is otherwise minded will agree to note the report. And we will come now to item 4, which is on community benefit funds, how they support community wealth building, and Kenny Lean is going to give us a presentation. So over to you, Kenny.
Thank you, Chair, and the presentation's now up, so thank you. So this presentation is just going to set out the links from the community benefit funds from local renewable energy to some of the community wealth building pillars. South Lanarkshire Council has a long experience of administering the funds and ensuring maximum community impact, going back to the first wind farm 25 years ago at Hagshaw Hill. Scotland's onshore capacity now for wind energy is 9.4 gigawatt, and the ambition of the Scottish Government is to take that to 20 gigawatt onshore by 2030, so quite a large increase. Currently, each wind farm contributes a starting fee of £5,000 per kilowatt into the funds. This is guided by the Scottish Government, and older funds have had an RPI applied to them, so that now is £7,500 per megawatt, but remains as £5,000 per megawatt for any new wind farm at the moment, so slight difference there. Overall in Scotland, there's £30 million worth of community benefits being generated by renewable energy, and of that, 10 to 15% of that is within South Lanarkshire. Quarry funds are a much smaller fund, very much in the the pence and a few £1,000s, but are still a community benefit. And currently, there is no guidance from the Scottish Government on community benefit from solar farms and battery storage, although that is under consultation from the Scottish Government. Currently, that consultation estimates that battery storage is 453 megawatt in Scotland and forecast to grow to 10 gigawatt by 2030. So again, a huge increase. Scottish Government guidance funds that these funds are for communities close to the wind farms and to benefit. So again, linking in to the Community Wealth Building Fund about local money staying local. Funds are held and agreed through legal agreements with South Lanarkshire Council. In South Lanarkshire, the Council does not administer all funds, and there are other mechanisms across the area. Another link is in their community ownership of wind farms, and that is encouraged through new developments and by the Scottish Government, and there is support through CARES for communities, and there's a couple of different models that can be taken, which is taking a share of an existing wind farm development or one that's about to be built, or communities developing that themselves. The only one that I'm aware of in South Lanarkshire is Lismahago Development Trust, which has community wind farm. And the payback period for that, which would then start to generate further money for the local community, is approximately 8 to 10 years. Community benefit funds that we currently administer have a number of strong community themes, and a few of these link directly across to the aims and the powers of the community wealth building. So I've highlighted a few here in yellow. The first being support for communities consider their own priorities at a community level and deliver community projects that they prioritise. Support to assist communities to take on local community ownership and or managed assets, and we'll give a few examples later on. Under prosperous communities, support for training, education and employment, and again, we'll give some examples. Support for the growing local SME infrastructure, supporting local businesses. Support to locally focused social enterprises and not-for-profit organisations. Under theme 4, sustainable environmental communities, to promote and encourage environmental enhancements, including the provision and upgrade of infrastructures. And then finally, out of these highlighted, support for projects which aim to improve energy efficiency, reduce carbon emissions, develop sustainable transport, climate changes. But the whole suite of activity that can be funded from community benefit funds are of benefit to the local community. Forward. So 2 years ago, we undertook some consultation with local communities through the community conference and various other consultations, and we prioritised what could really be delivered by the community benefit funds, and we came out with 7 priorities to try and see a change over the next 5 to 6 years. Of these, 4 very much link to the community wealth building agenda. So very quickly, recreation and community facilities and community ownership of assets, increasing and supporting the ownership of community assets. Rural entrepreneurship activities and business infrastructure, again, supporting money to stay within our local communities and supporting that. Jobs and training and employability, and then environmental and the net zero sustainability. All of the priorities would link across, but those are very clear linkages. Just a little bit about the mechanics of the fund. At the moment, the wind farm funds, community benefit funds, can fund microgrants in every single community council across South Lanarkshire, and for microgrants and £5,000. Then we move up the steps of funding to grants below 20,000, which can be at 100%. Grants over 20,000 can be 100%, but only in areas where there are numerous wind farms. Funds can fund capital, but as of last year can also fund revenue projects, which help deliver a lot broader impact on the area. Funds have supported the RISE School Leavers programme across South Lanarkshire, and the funds support Connect to Renewables employability programme. As some examples of the fund and what's been delivered, Abington Schoolhouse was closed when a new schoolhouse was built, and between the community benefit funds of 800,000 and money from the Regeneration Capital Grant, a new community hub was built and is in the ownership of the community. This provides rentable office space, meeting space, gym space, creates job opportunities, job training, has a gym, a cafe, community rooms, and an outdoor garden hub, and demonstrates the funding from wind farms back into the community. Taking the theme around employability and training, as I said, Connect to Renewables has funded 320,000 per year into employability services from Middlemuir and Kitemuir, covering activity from Abington, Leadhills to Straven, and over 6 years, over 800 individuals have been supported and 80 supported into job outcomes. Connect to Renewables can support a broad variety of activities to help individuals, young individuals, get to training, get to work, get started in work, and remove barriers. The RISE programme, funded by the SSE Clyde Wind Farm, supports £200,000 for the delivery of employability services, supporting school leavers across South Lanarkshire through a 13-week employability course, targeting those at 15 to 18 who have disengaged with the mainstream education. 50 to 60 are supported each year in 2 intakes, winter and summer, again showing the community benefits from the wind farms. A few other examples in terms of land and property taken into community ownership. Wolfords and Tarbracks Improvement Foundation purchased Lonehead Farm 18 months ago, not using community benefit funds, but then have been supported further in their aims to develop this as an area for community support, community pantry, growing project, volunteering, training, jobs, and to boost the local economy. Blackwood Estate purchased woodland outside of Blackwood as a community woodland for the environment. Recently, community halls have been supported through the asset transfer phase. Douglas Dale Rail Group have been supported, again, not to purchase the land in this case, but for the onward feasibility reports and taking on of the land, woodland at Douglas, and that forms potential for community adventure tourism within the Hagshaw Hill area. Stonehouse Park Pavilion has recently undertaken a community asset transfer, and a grant has been awarded for the refit and renovation of the pavilion. And then a number of years ago, Lanark Development Trust took out a long lease at Castlebank Park, and that was again supported through the wind farm funds for community ownership. In terms of supporting the social economy, Clydesdale Community Initiative were supported during their initial set-up phase, but also in their expansion of a community cafe, which offers a large amount of training and employment opportunities and is an asset to the rural tourism in the Clydesdale area. Recently, Billy's Shop was a converted derelict high street shop in Lesmahago, which has been regenerated or is being regenerated at the moment as a pop-up mini market to support local traders. Healthy Valleys have been supported in their Gear Up project, which is a 3-year project supporting cycling in a large part of the rural South Lanarkshire through bike hire and training, with the aim that it becomes a self-sustainable social enterprise. And then Whiston Lodge, which is one of the larger employers in our rural area and the far rural area, has been supported for outward bound, as an outward bound training centre, and has been supported for employability. And thank you. That was the presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I ask if there are any questions? Could you indicate now? I think from my point, I don't have a question so much, but an observation that I would make is to come back to the earlier point in the presentation around these new developments that we're seeing, these new proposals we're seeing around sort of battery storage and solar. There is an issue, I think, in South Lanarkshire, and we can do a lot. We can tap into these funds and do a lot through REF and through support from the sector where they're within that 10 kilometres, but actually we have areas of real need and real deprivation in South Lanarkshire that don't fall within that scope. And I think it would be interesting to kind of understand a bit more about the needs of these developing and emerging sectors, albeit I think what we're also seeing, just say on the planning and development side, is that actually even there that this is quite a new concept, and you obviously have to have appropriate checks and balances. So I'm not asking the question, I'm flagging the issue and probably just encouraging members of the Commission who will be involved in various different areas of policy making to bear that in mind, that the sooner we understand what is acceptable and what is not in planning terms, and then what is feasible and what is not in terms of community benefit, actually I think there's potentially an opportunity to bring some community support to parts of South Lanarkshire that kind of miss out on the boom in renewables that we've seen over recent years, that's made us, I think, one of the few places in the country that's actually a net exporter of electricity. Okay, can I come to Kirsten Robb? Now, Kirsten, we can't hear you, so just bear with me as a second to find out if this is an issue on your side or ours.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. We can hear you now. On you go.
Thanks. I think I'd lent my book against something. Thanks very much, Kenny. Thanks for all your work over the years on this issue. I wanted to ask, lots of great projects there. I wanted to ask a bit about the fact that this community benefits are still small compared to the profits that the companies are making. What opportunities are there, or what more can we do as a council to when wind farms come up for repowering to work a bit more proactive, or try and rebalance some of those community benefits to reflect the profits that the companies are making, and even look at public partnerships with the voluntary sector and ourselves as a council to try and keep more of the money that's generated in South Lanarkshire to benefit local services and communities. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, it's been a question that's been raised. So I think first of all, we have over the last 3 or 4 years approached a number of the wind farm companies to ask about renegotiating or any changes. That's been pretty much rebuffed for any existing funds and legal agreements, and a whole argument put up against that. So I think that the area is under the new agreements, the repowering. The repowering is currently going ahead at Hagshaw Hill, will be in the early stages of being looked at both Whiteleys and Blacklaw. So I do think those are areas for discussion for us, being very clear what we're expecting locally for community benefits and the broader benefit. I think the other major issue is the point that I raised there is a wind farm that started contributing in 20 years ago is now contributing 7,500 per megawatt, but a new wind farm starts out at 5,000, and there seems a great big disparity there. And that is one of the issues with the repowering, is it will be getting raised through the feedback to the government's consultation on community energy, community benefits, is that it should at least be 7,500 as a starting point.
Okay, I'm going to come back to Kirsten Robb.
That's fine. And on anything else we can do for the council themselves to become more involved in maybe taking shares in these wind farms or part ownership, so we can grasp more of the benefits for our local communities.
Yeah, I think the whole ownership of the wind farms on part shares is an interesting one, especially when it comes that the guidance says that if a community takes on, for example, talk about community, then the payback can be in 7 to 8 to 9 sort of years, and then they're paid the interest and they're paid off most of the capital, and the benefit starts to come. However, I know there's been a lot of support for communities to take on ownership, and it is very challenging. You're talking about energy companies who do this for their business, understand every last stage of a very complex process to get a full wind farm up and running. So I'm not aware of too many local authorities that have taken an interest in it, and there are some major technical challenges and financial challenges to making that, you know, sound. Should we still be reviewing it and looking at it? Then yes, I think we continue to look at that, but I don't underestimate the difficulties to make that work.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Before I come to the next question, I suppose I would just draw attention to the some of the work that we are looking at around commercial opportunities, absolutely taking on board the health warnings that sit around this, and also just the submission that we made to government just last week around the power of general competence. Okay, could I come now to Councillor Ross?
Yes, thanks very much, Chair. It was really, I was very happy to hear Kenny say that they were looking at increasing under the repowering along the lines of what Kirsten was saying. And earlier yourself, Joe, you spoke about battery storage. One of my questions was, you know, have we determined what we're going to, what would be the amount of community payback for battery storage? And I would certainly like to see the benefits from these battery storage units spread more evenly across South Lanarkshire. I think it's something that I think we've found out over a long period of time with wind farms. There are areas within South Lanarkshire that don't receive any benefit at all, but are really crying out for that benefit. So I would like to see something that was more equitable as we go forward. And certainly the report that we did at last week's meeting saying that we could look at giving local authorities more power to dive into other areas, it would certainly be a benefit. I'm all for that. Thanks very much.
Okay, Kenny?
Yeah, in terms of battery storage, I think there's a couple of things to keep in mind. First of all, it's like the very early days of the wind farm. There hasn't been any guidance given in terms of what the income to community benefits should be. So we are looking for some direction on that. There's quite a large debate going on about it hasn't the same visual impact. It doesn't generate power. So what's the rate? What should the rate be? But I also know from talking to wind farm developers and the developers of these wind farms, and I'm afraid this goes counter to what we're looking for or what we've asked for. They're thinking about small funds being very, very local funds for the battery storage. But I think those are the small funds. I think the broader use of community benefit funds is an area to consider. I'm not sure the battery storage will be the one that should be the area we focus on because it is smaller funds. But I think where there's a bigger impact over a broader area, then those are areas that we should be discussing.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any other questions, so can I just ask us then to, well, note the report. We've received the presentation and we'll note the content of the presentation, and thank you, Kenny, for that. Can I come now to item 5, which is a paper on the employability and employment pillar of community wealth building, and Douglas Hashigan is going to speak to this report. Douglas.
Thanks very much, Chair. So the report I'm going to talk through is an update on the work of the employability team, South Lanarkshire Works. The employability service went through a restructure a couple of years ago and has been established to kind of cover the full range of youth and adult employability programmes. The majority of programmes that we deliver are supported by external grant funding from Scottish Government, UK Government, and as Kenny's touched on, the kind of wind farm community benefit funds as well. All the programmes that we deliver are kind of designed and delivered in partnership with the South Lanarkshire Local Employability Partnership, which involves kind of the key partners, including DWP, NHS, South Lanarkshire College, VASLAN and Skills Development Scotland. And our programmes are split into three essentially, so key worker-based employability support delivered to key priority groups, and the learning and training and skills development that those participants require to kind of move them into work. We as a service also deliver a range of services to young people that are still at school, which aren't funded by external funds, but mainly supported by kind of council core resources. So moving on, just to talk a wee bit more detail about the key worker-based services. So we've set out in an annual investment plan a range of groups ranging from young people in the last 6 months of school, young people aged 16 to 19, adults with barriers to employment, people with long-term health barriers, people with learning disabilities and parents from key priority groups. And all the participants from each of those groups has a kind of distinct key worker service, either delivered in-house by my own team or delivered on our behalf by Roots to Work South, which is the Council's arm's-length delivery organisation for employability. And all those services are really underpinned by the Scottish Government's No One Left Behind delivery model, which is set out at 4.2 in terms of kind of flexible provision. A few years ago, there was a range of services that were kind of funded at either UK or Scottish level and through big, large kind of contracts, often with outcome-based funding. And the kind of idea of the No One Left Behind approach that we kind of follow locally is really about a kind of flexible approach where there's no wrong door and there's a kind of person-centred approach to employability. So moving on to section 5, sets out some of the employment training and learning provision that the participants on our programmes can access. And the idea is that that's kind of needs-led and planned on a regular basis through the Employability Partnership, and ranges from volunteering for employability, which is delivered on our behalf by VASLAN, an Employability Academy delivered by South Lanarkshire College, the RISE programme, which Kenny referred to earlier on, that's supported by wind farms, as well as the Reach and Impact programme, which are group work programmes targeted at school leavers. We also have college-based winter and summer leaver programmes for young people in the last 6 months of school, remote health and wellbeing provision for young people that are not at a stage to be able to engage in face-to-face learning, and a range of kind of vocational work-based opportunities in response to need, including what we've done with QTS Rail Academy, linked to the East Kilbride Enhancement Project, Hospitality Academy in partnership with McDonald Crowland Hotel, and a whole range of vocational tasters and sector-based training delivered in response to need. Participants in our programmes can also access a whole range of work placements and work tasters, and some of which actually reflect the earlier presentation around community wellbeing opportunities from the community benefit clauses. We also have the Project Search programme, which has been well established to support young people with learning disabilities at NHS Lanarkshire sites within Hare Myers, and both within the hospital and within ISS, which are the facility services there. We've recently delivered a demonstrator programme which supports 6-month waged part-time work placements within NHS Lanarkshire, as well as just this year within our own facility service, which have been successful in moving parents into employment. And we offer a range of employer recruitment incentives. That's kind of diminished slightly over the past couple of years due to kind of the fair work requirements, which mean there's just less employers able to kind of offer that support, but we still offer employer recruitment incentives where we can. At the bottom under 5.3 just refers to the Connect 2 Renewables programme, which Kenny mentioned in his presentation earlier. So just moving on to the kind of scale of service, at table 3 sets out kind of some of the outcomes and objectives achieved in 2023 to 24. We were supported over 2,200 participants through those key priority groups, moved just under 600 into employment and achieved just over 500 training or further education outcomes. And at table 4, which just goes up to November 2024, you can see that for that period within the year, we'd already surpassed the figures from the previous year with 2,640 registrations, 620 people moving into work, and 861 progressions to training or further education. Moving on to section 7, a big focus of our team is improving the school leaver destination rate for schools, so the amount of young people that move into employment or further learning or training when they leave school. And we can see at table 5 they can improve in picture in terms of positive destinations. Well, in 2022-23, 96.9% of young people moved into a positive destination. We've just, since this paper was drafted, we've actually done an update on the 23-24 figure, which is a slight dip of, we're now sitting at 96.4% of young people moving into a positive destination after they leave school. And you can see at table 6 just a breakdown of some of those destinations. Another part of our role is, I think there's been an acknowledgement that you might move a young person into a positive destination when they leave school, but what happens after that? So we, in partnership with Skills Development Scotland, put a lot of resources into tracking the destinations of young people. So when young people between the ages 16 and 19 become unemployed or in an unknown destination, we are kind of mobilising as a partnership to try and find them, find out what they're doing and move them into work or into support. And that what that involves is essentially walking up and down streets, chapping doors and trying to engage people. And you can see at table 8 just the number of young people that we've carried out home visits for with a view to try and move them back into support. And at section 9, just articulate some of the work we do with schools for young people that are in S4 to S6 in the senior phase. We've got the Foundation Apprenticeship Programme, which has been running in South Lanarkshire for around 6 years. Foundation Apprenticeships are a national senior phase option funded by Skills Development Scotland and the Scottish Funding Council, and it involves young people leaving school for 2 days a week to complete qualifications through either attending college as well as work placements. And you can see at table 9.4 just some of the kind of stats and numbers that we have. So last year we had just under 200 young people taking part in foundation apprenticeships delivered in partnership between ourselves, South Lanarkshire College and New College Lanarkshire. And the frameworks there from accountancy, business skills, creative and digital media, children, young people, engineering, healthcare and IT software. So the foundation apprenticeship is delivered at level 6, so is the equivalent of a higher. At 9.6, there's just a bit of discussion about the graduate programme, which is a kind of in-house programme we've developed locally, which sits at level SCQF level 4 or 5, so equivalent to a national 4 or national 5. And we, again, deliver that in partnership with South Lanarkshire College, New College Lanarkshire, but also Glasgow Kelvin College. And we offer around 1,000 places per year. And you can see just at table 11, 23, 24, we had just under 800 young people complete that programme across a whole range of vocational areas. That involves young people coming out of school a day a week to attend college and take part in that learning. So it's been a big success locally. What we've also provided, which I'll not go into in detail, but members can look at in a leisure at Appendix 1, is a whole range of case studies, just setting out some of the experiences of some of the participants across our programmes and the kind of impact that their engagement had on them. So again, it's just for noting, but happy to take any questions.
Okay, can I ask if there are any questions? Could you indicate now? I'll come to John Ross.
Yes, thanks very much, Chair. It's not so much a question, it's just thanks very much for the report. I was really surprised by some of the statistics and some of the numbers achieved by the department. I think it's a really good report and more power to the Elbow. They seem to be doing a really good job and it's where we want to be. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Could I come to Kirsten Robb?
Thank you. And Douglas, nice to read more about the report after we shared the table at the Marmot event, so that's great. I had a couple of questions which kind of follows up what we chatted about actually. We were talking about areas where the council may be experiencing workforce demand or an ageing workforce and how we can try and match that up with some of the employability work, offering new apprentices or apprenticeships or training programs to try and sort of develop the workforce for the future in any challenging areas. So that's the first question. And the second one is just to look at the kind of outcomes for the very challenging sort of group of people with disabilities or long-term health conditions. must be quite challenging work. And I was just wondering if there's anything else we can do there as a commission to develop more supported employment type opportunities, having kind of used an office at the Clydesdale Community Initiatives building. You can see really the impact it has. There's a place for everyone in terms of their disability. You can find a role, and just to see if there's anything else we can do in that to try and increase those outcomes, which I appreciate are pretty challenging in numbers. It's like, is it 10% went on to sort of successful a destination and so on. Thanks.
Thanks for the questions. So in terms of progressions to employment at the council, we use work placements across the council as well as the kind of local employers to move folk into areas of demand. And as I set out, there's a range of opportunities within the council where there's kind of hard to recruit posts, particularly entry level posts. So the demonstrator programme that I talked about is focused on parents. So within facilities, there's bespoke roles being created that are actually around their childcare needs. So they may start a bit later, finish a bit earlier on a kind of individual basis in order that they can kind of look after their kids. So that there's loads of opportunities there, and we've been talking to colleagues within a number of services about how we can kind of move young people with barriers into employment. And sometimes that's not just about, guaranteed interviews. It might be about the use of work placements so they can demonstrate their competence before they go to interviews. So I think there's absolutely loads of opportunities in that area. In terms of people with disabilities, we were a wee bit ahead of the game. I mean, a lot of the larger local authorities like ourselves have been delivering supported employment programmes for a number of years. But this financial year, we've had this kind of supported employment programme funded through Scottish Government's funding, as well as a programme through Roots to Work South for people with kind of mental health conditions. As of the 1st of April, that will be a requirement through the annual investment plans. We'll have a separate reporting programme to Scottish Government, which means we'll be able to identify clearly about the percentages within those groups that are moving into employment. And I think it's always a challenge in terms of folk with disabilities to find the kind of placements and the jobs that are tailored to their needs. So the employer engagement team that we've got spend a lot of time going out and talking to employers about the kind of their needs as an employer and how the young people or adults with disabilities can kind of move into their workforce.
Thanks very much. Thanks. Really important, inspiring work. Thanks.
Thank you. Could I come to Josephine Pravankumar?
Chair, and thank you for the very impressive report. So much, in terms of the outcomes. Great to see the outcomes there. And I know we've only got data up till August 24 on page 22 in terms of performance, but just wondering around, and the number of people moving into employment is higher as well. It looks like from the 5 months data, but just wondered if there is, is that we might not have data yet, but are there more registration? Are you seeing more in terms of uptake compared to previous years? And you're starting to see that already. And in terms of there's something around the foundation apprenticeships later on in the list you shared, and I wondered whether for that program as well, do we have more people from kind of SIMD1 areas who might be using those, or is it a kind of equal distribution? Can we, is it possible to get that level of breakdown, or even see what more maximize opportunities for those in that SIMD1 group? Those two comments. Thank you. A really excellent report. Thanks.
Yeah, so in terms of quarter four, I think the figures are increasing against last quarter, so we will have that for our next service reporting profile. In terms of why that's been increasing, I think the number, there's always a need for these services. We've got fairly well established, very well referral routes in terms of schools and DWP. I think the restructure of employability has helped that because we've got a single reporting system, which means we're capturing all those referrals in one place. In terms of progression to employment, I think that is just kind of hard work across our own team and Roots to Work South about that employer engagement piece, where we're engaging with employers to try and support them to fill vacancies and move people into work. In terms of foundation apprenticeships, I mean, I think it's fair to say foundation apprenticeships are not a targeted employability programme in the way that some of the other programmes that we deliver are. They're a kind of senior phase learning opportunity which is a kind of similar level to a higher. So it does, by its nature, it's young people that can operate at that level and can kind of learn at that level. But what I can certainly do is, we've got all the kind of data in terms of numbers. I can look into that and pull out the figures in terms of what percentage have been from those SIND areas.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I don't see any other questions, so unless people are otherwise minded, we'll just agree to note the report. And thank you, Douglas, for that, for speaking to that. Can I come now to item 6, which is a presentation by Blantyre Soccer Academy on their community asset transfer. And today we have with us from Blantyre Soccer Academy, we have Jimmy Whelan, and he will be supported by Jen Kerr. So over to you.
Just going to start by putting up a video, but oh, there it is. Yay, okay.
Blantyre Larkfield refurbishment project. Blantyre Soccer Academy has acquired Larkfield Hall, aiming to transform it into a state-of-the-art community hub. This 20-week program will create a modern football stadium with top-notch facilities, enhancing community engagement and sports development. Former Larkfield, a key site for our ambitious refurbishment project. This building will undergo a complete transformation, becoming a vibrant community hub. Stay tuned for updates on this exciting journey. The internal state of the hall shows significant disrepair, including a leaking roof. This highlights the urgent need for refurbishment. Our project will address these issues, ensuring a safe and welcoming environment for all. Pride underway at the former Larkfield Hall. Include structural improvements and modern updates. This trend will breathe new life into the building, making it a cornerstone of community activities. The current state of disrepair is evident with damaged facilities and clutter. Our refurbishment will revitalize these spaces, creating functional and appealing areas for community use. New toilets and roller shutters are in progress. We're installing a new heating system, fire alarms, and a comprehensive security setup. These upgrades will ensure safety and comfort for all visitors. Significant progress is being made throughout the hall. Now Blantyre Community Trust Hub, it will be managed by the Blantyre Community Trust. The exterior will feature an insulation for an attractive finish. The entrance has been completely transformed with new flooring, doors, and paintwork. This modernized entryway sets the tone for the revitalized community hub, welcoming all visitors with a fresh look. The main hall area featuring a meeting/cafe hall and a toilet. These enhancements make the space and accessible for various community events. The before and images show dramatic of the hall. This project, starting in September 24 and completing in February 25, exemplifies the potential of community asset transfers.
Hi, my name's Jimmy Whelan from Blantyre Soccer Academy, and I'm just here to tell you the pros and cons of community asset transfers. We are now on our third community asset transfer, which I'll just run through with you just now. The first community asset transfer was Blantyre Rowan Hall. The former Rowan Hall was purchased from the council for £1. We carried out extensive repairs totalling roughly about £100,000. We restored the hall to a fully functionable and habitable space. The current function serves Blantyre Soccer Academy Community Hub. It hosts over 10 community events a week. It currently employs 3 full-time staff members, supports local engagement and activities. And since we started Blantyre Soccer Academy, we started it with 20 kids. We have now went on to, I think we've got 800 kids. We've got 4 disability teams. We've got 4 girls teams. We've even got a walking football team. So we go for the age of 4 right through, which is really, really good in terms of achievement for us considering that we have maybe, I think it's about 97 volunteers who give up their time to dedicate to this. So on community asset number 2. Yeah, but it's not moved.
Sorry, let's try. There we go.
Yeah, it's us.
Oh, now it's gone back.
Right, I'll show you there. Right. Community asset number 2 was we purchased the land opposite where the building sat, and we transformed that into allotments, and we also transformed the back garden of where the community hub is into, as you can see in the pictures there, a lovely garden and a COVID memorial place where people can come. It's open all day. People can come in and sit and do a bit of reflection, do whatever. It's absolutely fantastic what we've done with nothing, basically, you know, and volunteers all came together to make this happen. It's absolutely fantastic getting a community asset transfer. Mm-hmm. Now we went on to community asset transfer number 3, which was the former Larkfield Hall, which we purchased the Larkfield Hall and the old Bing area in Blantyre for £13,300 from the council, which had been closed for 4 years. You've just seen the video there of how it was in total disrepair we went in. So we've spent over £200,000 bringing that building back, and we only opened there last Thursday, which is absolutely fantastic for us. You know, as I say, we spent £200,000. We put a new flat roof on it, full electrical rewire, full heating system, new alarm, CCTV system round about it, a full facilities fit out inside, all with the help of some local builders in Blantyre and some community payback from Blantyre companies. I heard Kenny talking about it earlier, and they've actually came on board and done a lot of stuff for us because we're a charity, which is absolutely fantastic again for us. You know, we've revitalised the whole area. Everybody that goes by looks at it and goes, wow, what a difference here, because that was only a match away from no being here. And now people are actually proud of what we've done because they walk by, and me personally, if I see somebody within there, the first thing I'll do is shouting them over like kids or whatever and say, look, this isn't your hall, this is yours. We built this for yous. And they start to take a wee bit ownership of it. You know, I'll go back to the first community asset transfer we done in the Roan Hall. I mean, if anybody's visited it, it's pure white outside. Before it, it was just covered in spray paint everywhere. And we have had not one bit of vandalism on that building, which is great, especially in Blantyre. Believe you me, I know, because I was born and bred in it, so I used to drink the odd carry out round the back of the Roan Hall at one point, you know, so I know what like it was. But now the kids actually have taken ownership of the hall, and they know that they can come in any time. It's great. It's absolutely fantastic to do something and give something back to the community, and the community love it. It's great. The obstacles and the downsides of the CAT process, right? You've got lengthy paperwork and loads of duplication, which I think both parties, doesn't matter who they are, can learn from it. You know, there's loads and loads of documents you need to go through before, when you submit an expression of interest, you get approval on it, and then you go, and the lack of understanding. I was quite fortunate that I studied the Community Asset Transfer Act before it became law. So I knew the ins and outs of it. So I was fortunate enough to know it. And it's a difficult, complex. Everybody thinks it's straightforward. It's not. Everybody can learn for this. You know, the council and just Joe Bloggs in the street can learn from it. You don't need to be a Philadelphia lawyer, but at times you feel as if you need to be, you know, and everything just seems to drag on. Like legal delays, I'll go on to that. It takes an extended time to complete, which I know that if we're going for a community asset transfer, the council or whoever, it's not just all about us. I understand that. There is timescales allowed on everything, but I think we could make the processes between us a bit easier as opposed to being so complex. You know, the legal documentation, it should be a straightforward process. Now that we've went through quite a few, I think we were the second in South Lanarkshire ever to get a community asset transfer. But there's been quite a few now, as Kenny read out quite a few. Can we not just have an easy document, whereas we can just change a name, like a lease, like whether it's a lease or whether it's a community asset transfer where you're going to buy, make that simpler, because it will then stop deterring people. Because right now, the council are looking to give, I think there's 2 halls in Blantyre, they're looking to offload them. And I'll use that offload word, but I shouldn't really, but they're trying to give them to an old ladies group. You know, what does an old lady know about running? And no disrespect to anybody, but what do they know about running a hall? They only get in for a cup of tea. They don't know they've got to pay the electricity bill and the gas bill. Nobody explains that to them. So things like that, silly wee things, could be explained to them. Look, your overheads are going to be this, because we know what they are, but we're not telling you. Or you never asked for that. You know that it's going to cost you 12 grand a month to run your hall. No, but I only make a tea, son. Oh, but we want to give you the hall. Or it's going to cost you 200 grand to renovate it. No, the length of time frames could be changed. You know, I think it could be made easier for everybody. You know, because it has elongated processes to it, then causes problems with funding that you have went for and get put in place. Kenny, you can back me up on this regarding the funding. When you go for funding, you say, right, I'll have that by the March. But you've no, because it's went on. You know, I've got it myself now with the SFA, and I've had to roll money into next year, and I'm quite fortunate with the SFA. But if you don't hit that time scale, you lose that funding. You know, and that is all the wee silly things. But that funding could be £100,000, it could be £700,000. So these things, and it has to be looked at for both sides. You know, you can't snap your fingers and expect everybody to jump, but we could make it easier, a lot easier. The benefits of community asset transfer, I mean, I can't promote this enough, you know, for the correct people to take charge of it. You know, we, in both our, the hall and the hub, as I'll call them, we're creating spaces for people to come together, socialise and build connections. You know, we're empowering young people, encouraging ownership, because we've got loads of different young persons groups that work within it, within all these different areas, and the young people will come on, and as you said there, they'll come on and they'll take coaching roles on, and the next thing you know, they're wanting to get down a career of being a football coach, or they want to get down the career of being a sports coach. You know, that's the sort of stuff, you know, and we also work with loads of different community groups who come in and use the garden. They've all got their own wee allotments which they can bring, like mothers and toddlers bring their kids down and they can plant vegetables, do whatever. And it's absolutely superb that we've got this facility and that people can come and use it, because Blantyre's a high SIMD area, and it's great to see these areas that were just sitting derelict getting used and people taking advantage of it. It's great. And I'll just finish on the last bit there, supporting vulnerable groups. You know, we've got disability groups, but right now, ups and downs are actually want to take space within our hall. They want to run their group for there, which is absolutely fantastic for us. You know, I've got a friend who's got a wee girl who's got Downs, and she can't wait to get into it, you know, to get into the hall, because they get that excited. You know, in vulnerable groups, especially after COVID, we've got a wee, in the first hub, we've got a wee hub at the back here, whereas it's a tea and coffee making facility, there's tables there. And what we get is we've got a wee women's guild who come in and they sit 3 times a week and have a cup of tea and a chat and whatever. And if it's a nice sunny day, they'll go out and sit in the garden. It's absolutely fantastic. Oh, but thank you very much. And thanks very much for listening to me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Jimmy, thank you. Can I ask if there are any questions in response to the presentation? Could you indicate now? Can I come to Margaret Walker?
Thanks, Chair. Just to say thanks very much for the report, and just to echo a lot about what you've said, the community asset transfer community hall in one of the ones in Cambuslang is absolutely fantastic, and it's got all the benefits that you put in your presentation across a wide range of different age groups, younger people, older people, and it's got a fantastic atmosphere, and it's right in the heart of the community. And one of the, it's now a full-blown CAT. It was kind of semi-CAT previously, but once we started, there was all the reviews of the halls, etc. It's now a full-blown CAT. And the feedback from the community, particularly after COVID, when these halls were shut, I mean, the absolute delight of the community to get back into groups, activities, doing all the digital learning. I mean, what you're saying is just you cannot stress too heavily what the value of these facilities are to the community. But I was just going to say, in terms of, I know the difficulties involved in relation to the process, but we do have staff specifically supporting people through this, you know, because there's been a number, obviously, of facilities that have been moved towards either CAT Light or whatever. We do have a full section of people that should be supporting people through the process. So it's the social economic development team, yeah.
So we have 2 community asset liaison officers who work in the community engagement team. We added an additional one last year for the additional buildings that were up for transfer. And that role focused entirely on Clydesdale just because there were so many buildings in that area. So I think Ian Mulholland is the asset liaison officer that has probably been around almost 2.5 years now, 3 years of Ian's support. And we had David Reid for a year as well in addition.
So say they would get that level of support, anybody sort of going through that process then, yeah.
I think probably the issue that's picked up there is we have that liaison support that we've put in. We put in some additional resource because there was a lot happening. But I think what's coming out from Jimmy's presentation is it's not simply about that liaison. You've got to think of all the other, you know, you've kind of got property, legal, there's so many other people that you have to draw into, and that makes for a drawn out process that can be time consuming when you want it to run, to time. I've got a few more points to come in, so I'm going to come to you. Do you want to come in, Paul, in response to that? Oh, right, okay, I'll come in to John Ross.
Yeah, thanks very much, Joe. And firstly, to congratulate Jimmy. I've had experience with Blantyre Academy. I know the great work that they do. And what a breath of fresh air to listen to you speak this afternoon, Jimmy, because you understand the problems with people taking on cats. It's okay initially, and it's okay. We've got a team of people that talk to people initially, but really what we need is people to hold people's hands for a lot longer period than what's happening at the present time. You've explained that an awful lot of people have got no experience at all. They think it's a good idea. They enter into it. They get help from us. But over the period of the next year, year and a half, they're left to themselves. And that's when things can go badly wrong. And I believe 100% in what you were saying. We really need to look at a long-term solution. We had a proposal in our budget. Unfortunately, it wasn't accepted, but it was to have certain people who would hold organisations' hands for a longer period of time in order to give them the confidence to take forward cats. And unless we look at this in a longer period of time, we're not going to be able to do the job the right way. But huge congratulations for everything you're doing, Jimmy. I've been to several of the things that you're doing, and they all work out extremely well. Blantyre owes you a huge respect. So thanks again. Bye.
Okay. Paul?
Listen, thanks, and Jimmy, thanks for the presentation and for taking us through that. And I obviously can't speak highly enough of what you're doing in Blantyre. It's absolutely exemplary, right? And it's a privilege for us to have it within our area. So well done, Jimmy. In terms of what you've laid out there around the physical change that you've made to those buildings, that's absolutely there for everybody to see. You're working at scale. You are bringing in 800 young people, right, and adults as well within the community, and again looking at the social groups that you've got that are helping vulnerable people. It's absolutely all terrific. See the points that you're making about and they are worthwhile, right, and I totally get them, around the difficulties in putting community asset transfers in place. And this is something that we've done a whole number of, especially across the past couple of years. So I know we like to think we're getting better at it, but what I would appreciate is maybe even an afternoon of your time, right? And I'd like to do this with other groups who've gone through community asset transfers over the past few years, just to get to the bottom of the point you're making around, how do you make that process as easy as possible? Right, and so people are aware of the pitfalls. So even if we did a sort of short, sharp exercise where we get folk in, facilitate a bit of a discussion and try and get some kind of improvement plan from our point of view about how we engage with you and how we do it, I think that would help us. It's a bit more nuanced than maybe some of the opinions that we've heard around, community groups being brought in and then left. There is support that's offered on an ongoing basis, and that is something that we've looked to develop across the past couple of years. So we like to think we're learning lessons, but I'm not daft enough to think there's nothing left that we can't pick out of this. So it'd be great to get a wee bit of your time, Jimmy, if you'd indulge me with that. Thank you, Jimmy. Cheers.
Okay, I have Josephine Pravan-Kumar from the NHS.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Jimmy. That was amazing and really inspiring work that you've been doing. And I think Paul already alluded to this. I was wondering whether your insights can go to inform something like an aid memoir or a checklist. I know it's maybe oversimplifying it, but that bit about that improvement plan, so that others can, benefit from what you've gone through, the insights from your journey. But also, I know you've called it Sport and Community Hub mainly, and I take it there is opportunity for other kind of community groups to engage. I think what has been done is excellent, but I just wondered, is it very restricted to that kind of soccer sports community, or is it possible to hire for other events and things as well, and much more wider groups than that. So thank you.
Okay. Jimmy, do you want to come back in any of that?
Yeah, the hall is open to anybody who wants to hire it for any group. We've had various different groups in. We had an open day on Thursday for people just to have a walk around and see what we could do with the hall and how we could help them. You know, and we've had loads of different groups in. Like say we've got a spiritualist church who uses it. We've got Alcoholics Anonymous who use it. They're all based at the other place at the minute. We've got a men's mental health group who uses it, Keep the Heed, it's been absolutely fantastic. I go to that myself, actually. Not because I'm off my head, but just because I go to it just to make sure everyone's getting done properly. And it's been really, really a pleasure to work with guys who's maybe guys that's got addictions or guys who's suffering grief, things like that, and they all take part in this. So it's not just solely about football or sport. We involve every part of the community we can.
Amazing.
That helps you.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Jimmy, can I ask maybe just to follow up on that? So that's, you get a very identifiable brand in the community as Blantyre Soccer Academy. So football's at the core of what you're doing, but actually what you've talked through, you know, Memorial Garden, Larkfield, you've grown out into much more of that. So I'm just, see across like your 3 sites, to what extent is football still part of the community offering?
% of our basically what we were started for, and I always say, look, we need to concentrate on the football side, but any other group who wants to come in, the other 30% who want to come in, you know, and join us. You know, I mentioned the group there, Keep the Heed. That was started before guys, and I was one of them. Now that's got some like 60 men involved in it. It's a men-only group. Right now we're trying to bring in a lot of women's group into it. But now we've got other premises we can actually open it up, because in the old Rowan Hall, it only seats about 20 people because we use our boardroom in there. Now it's bigger and it'll be able to open right up, especially for the Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. That'll make that really, really big for them. The hard bit now is just try to get everybody let's and juggle it about. That's the only thing. You know, but I know there's another couple of community halls in Blantyre, but as we always do, we always set out to be unique, whereas we'll accommodate anybody. Whereas a lot of people will go, no having Alcoholics Anonymous. Why not? These guys are trying to get better, or these women are trying to get better. You know, and that's the way we look at it. We're looking after our community. And that's what Blantyre Soccer Academy, although it was called Blantyre Soccer Academy, was built on the foundation of Blantyre being named the murder capital of Scotland at one point. And that was 15 years ago. And I personally say, look, we need to do something with this to change the kids, because it was all gang culture. And anywhere you went to after starting it, you might, but say 6 months down the line, everywhere you went, you seen a kid with Blantyre Soccer Academy top on. And then you seen the parents starting to talk to each other. So it became more unified. The town became more unified and put together, which was great. It was great for us. Well, for me personally, because I've never kicked a ball in my life, believe it or not.
Right, okay, so that's interesting. I think, and I think it was about 30 years ago when I was last at the Ups and Downs, helping with the ups and downs, so it's good to know that they're still on the go. See if I just maybe kind of bring out, from my own point of view, these aren't so much questions to put, but maybe just things to kind of reflect on, and I think for the Commission to reflect on. I've got to say there's an element of jealousy in looking at what Blantyre Soccer Academy have done, because being able to invest in buildings at a time when the public sector is having to pull back from them. And if I come back to the, okay, we're now starting to get some investment into the estate, but the reality is, to do the quality of what's been done there right across the estate, we would have to have hundreds of millions in our budgets. So we're not going to get away from the fact that we have to work with the community to take assets and get better use out of them in the sort of medium and at least in the medium term. And I think there's some useful suggestions that are coming out of the presentation around how do you standardise some of that if you know that this is sort of a game in town and will be the significant game in town for a period to come. I think one thing that is worth reflecting on, because it's not so much happened in Blantyre but it's happened in other places, is what happens where we actually get multiple expressions of interest. What has happened in other communities, it's happened with other sites, and how do we navigate that? Now, by and large, what's happened is the strongest bids have sort of come forward, but I'm just thinking about what it kind of does to a community where you've actually got worthy uses going up against other potential very worthy uses. And actually what I've noticed just in the past couple of days is I've had people approach me to say we are interested in potential assets, but we're maybe just after Leisure and Culture announced sort of their withdrawals last year, they're maybe just a bit late for that. So we've already taken forward some good ideas, we've approved some good transfers, but we've got good propositions out there who are a bit homeless that we need to kind of work with to support. And I think the other point I suppose I just put out for people to reflect on is just, it's a political point, so it's mainly for the politicians on the Commission, which is, I think we're in a place now where sort of needs have driven us to a lot of where we've got to, and that's led to a position where we've had we've been able, I suppose, to marry potential expressions of interest up against facilities that we knew are mainly our leisure and culture operator were going to withdraw from. So in most cases, that's been a neat fit. It's not always going to be a neat fit. And under the legislation, community groups don't just have the right to apply for the facilities that, say, a leisure and culture operator are looking to withdraw from. They can apply anywhere. So actually this could develop in directions that we don't necessarily anticipate. And surely by now we've got enough sort of learning through experience as to how you manage that and how you guide people to a place where it's going to work for everyone if you possibly can. You're still going to have to resolve conflict, and ultimately that will come democratically when committees have to vote on propositions. But I think as far as possible you want to avoid getting to that stage. You want to try and resolve some of those issues well in advance. But look, if I can just bring this to a conclusion, look, thanks very much, Jimmy, for the presentation. Thanks everyone for the contributions. I think there's a lot there to reflect on the sort of the positives, the negatives, and actually what can we learn from it going forward. So thank you very much. Okay. If I can now come to our next paper, which is item 7, which is on the Marmot Place programme, and I'm coming back to Jen to speak to that report.
Hi, thanks. Just, sorry, give me 1 sec just to reorganise here. I feel a bit like the after lunch slot. Welcome. Hi, I'm Jen Kerr, the Community Engagement Manager. And I just wanted to provide an update to the Community Wealth Building Commission on the Marmot Place programme that we, the last time we spoke was in December, and it was only a verbal update just to say that we had been successful in our application alongside Aberdeen and North Ayrshire. So I just wanted to provide an update as to what that means and what's happening with the programme, and to let you know that we'll continue to provide ongoing progress reports to the Commission. So since we held a big launch event on the 25th of February, which was attended by over 130 organisations, people, community members, politicians, and delegates from across a range of partnership services in health, education, community, economic development, you name it. The aim of the event was to help people understand the purpose of Marmot as a programme that focuses our resources and our understanding of inequalities across South Lanarkshire. Section 6 of the paper outlines the launch event, and we've had great feedback, and a report will follow to say that people felt inspired. They felt that there was a good opportunity to look forward and work a little bit differently together in a collaborative way. The programme itself that we've entered into for the next 16 more months has 4 phases to it, and we're working still through phase 1, which is the data analysis stage. So a really important part of Marmot is to understand inequality and where it affects our communities. And in South Lanarkshire, that's actually quite difficult because of the way data is organised and the way our communities are quite blended. So it's hard to see inequality and poverty in some of our communities, particularly our rural communities. So we're working very hard to make sure that we understand, and we're working with a range of partners nationally and locally, as well as the Health Institute Equity, to provide an understanding of inequality and how it impacts on people's health across South Lanarkshire. And we're in the middle stages of that and already learning some surprises. And sometimes the data is just giving us more questions that we need to dig a little bit further into local communities to understand that. Phase 2 is also starting kind of alongside the finishing up of phase 1, where we're starting to understand the system that sits around this inequality. And by systems, we're talking about the 8 social determinants of health that the Marmot programme has evidenced, if we work in these areas consistently, that they produce a reduction in inequalities. And this is what their research and their experience across England and Wales has outlined. So phase 2 will be beginning to look at some of and prioritise the different social determinants around children, around families, and around early years in place, and how that affects across the range of the other ones through a different lens. There'll be some workshops later this year, and partners will be invited to that, and output reports will be provided as well. And the result of that will be an action plan that different partners can contribute to, or will contribute to, and a better understanding of what that contribution is making and what difference it should be making, and a very good monitoring framework to demonstrate that. So we're still phase 1, starting phase 2, and that's our update for now, but we'll come back probably about springtime, I think, with some much more significant outputs from the phase 1 data information and some of the workshop outputs in the launch event as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I ask if there are any questions on that report? Can I come to Kirsten Robb?
Thanks very much, and thanks for all the work done on the Marmot stuff. The launch was great, Jen. Really enjoyed it. I shared a table with the Burnhill Action Group, which was great because you really see the investment in capacity, the results of the investment in staff time, and the results that has on the community as well. So just thinking back to the excellent Blantyre Soccer Academy presentation, sometimes asset transfers rely on volunteers with time, people willing to learn more, but should that always be the case? Because we can see the investment in capacity and staff time pays results as well. So that was one of the things I was interested in exploring through Marmot. The investment in preventative spend and community capacity building. Could we do so much more if we invested in community capacity, gave more support to the asset transfer process in terms of people's time as well? So there was that side of things, recognising the importance of that. And the second one was looking at the Marmot Place, the outcome steering group. I'm not sure how we're going to help link environment and health. I noticed on the Community Planning Partnership Board, there is no environment type organisation with a sustainability hat on. So sometimes I find if there's nobody with that hat on in the room, then it doesn't get lost opportunities, or the links aren't being made. So how are we going to ensure through the steering group and the Community Planning Board how the sustainability angle will come through the Marmot principles, whether we need to add people to the board like SEPA or Nature Scott to make sure we have that sustainability hat on as well, please.
Okay, before I come to Jen, I will say we have added people to the board sort of organically as it's progressed and developed, so it's certainly something I'm willing to consider. So, for example, we very recently, Seniors Together joined the board of and to advocate for older people. South Lanarkshire Leisure and Culture didn't previously have a role on the board, but over the past couple of years they have. So it is something that has kind of grown organically, and I'm quite sure we'd be happy to sort of take that suggestion under consideration. But could I come to Jen maybe to answer more fully?
Thank you. That's a very good question, one we're actually currently discussing in the team and with our colleagues. So we've been doing a lot of work with young people, actually focusing on the climate aspect of our People, Place and Progress commitment in the community plan. And our young people have been hosting workshops asking us to think about what that means for them in their place, and in particular the young people from Burnhill have been quite central to that. They're quite passionate about that piece of land and what they've done with that piece of land and what it's meant for them as local residents. So we're also working with, our council has an internal climate working group that we've been discussing about how we would join those interests together, because they're interested in talking to more young people. We're talking to young people. We're more interested in working with some of our communities. So we're working jointly internally to bring our climate experts into the partnership at appropriate points where they feel we should be and where we're asked to consider that. So it's definitely not an afterthought. It's quite embedded in what we're doing, but whether or not it needs to be its own group, where if everyone thinks they're doing that over there, we'd like it to be mainstreamed and everyone is part of everyone's consideration.
Okay, thank you. Could I come now to Margaret Walker?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I was just going to ask in relation to 5.3, I mean, one of the most important elements of MARMOT for me is the ability to pull together lots of kind of data and information, and information that is currently being analysed, but maybe, you know, being analysed in one particular part of the organisation. So for me, I think this work's going to be really important going out through the data working group. It says you will report, I think, by preliminary work is aiming to be concluded by July 2025. It was just to get a wee bit more information about who's on the data working group and what areas are they looking at, and are they collating I mean, we have got excellent information at the moment and excellent analysis work. Are they collating all that and then looking at it with a view to then prioritisation, future planning, and maybe that going through the different community planning partnerships? Am I getting that right? Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah, we do have excellent data. We have a lot of it, but we have it against the areas where we work with it. So we have a lot about place and community planning. There's loads about children and young people and family services. What we're finding through this process is inviting people to come together around the 8 principles and look at data and layer them together is giving us a whole different analysis dimension. And we learned that in some of our neighbourhood planning work in East Kilbride earlier this year when we started to look at different types of data. We actually found things we just didn't expect. And we're still finding more things now as we look deeper and deeper into that. One of the fundamental learnings that's already come out from the Research Institute is that our SIMD data actually doesn't match how we collect and record health data. So they've had to reorganize that a little bit to make it comparable with deprivation. So our data group is led by a public health consultant named Carol Stewart, who's highly experienced at this and actually did MARMOT in Cumbria, where she previously worked for a council. So in that, we also have community planning. We've invited participants from various services and organisations with relevant data to be part of that. We also have lists analysts from Public Health Scotland who are experts in public health data, helping us, as well as Sir Marmot's Institute for Health Equity, who of course are the experts in this. So between us, we hope that we should be able to at least come up with some intermediate level zones of inequality and drill down into areas where we find stuff that doesn't add up. Data doesn't tell us the answer all the time. It sometimes gives us more questions than answers, and that's when we need to go out and start speaking to people about what does this mean for you, what we're finding, it doesn't make sense on paper, what's going on here.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any other questions, so if we could just bring us back to the recommendations, could we just agree to note that report? Can I come now to item 8 is urgent business. It's not so much urgent business as another item of competent business that I'm bringing forward. It's just the forward programme for future meetings. I think Tom's just going to give us a brief update on that. Tom.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Apologies that this didn't come out with your papers as normal and came to you late. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at it, though, and you'll see there is a good list of things that are coming forward in the programme. But I just wanted to take this time just to let you know we are looking at the Forward programme. We're looking at ways to make it work a wee bit better. So we will be better at mapping the regular updates you should be getting in terms of things like action plan. One of those will be coming to you in June. But also looking to bring forward a series of reports which will cover the pillars, the various pillars of community wealth building. And as part of that, as hopefully to the chair of the Progress Group, I'll be looking to see how partners and other community groups can help us inform the work we do. It was noticeable, I think, today that Jimmy's contribution was gratefully received because it was only one that wasn't made by a council officer, and it'd be really good to hear many, many more voices like that around this table. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. If there are no questions on that, can I bring the meeting to a close and thank everybody for your attendance. Thank you.